But that's, all right, I'd like to call the Conservation Commission Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency meeting for April 25th to order. For roll call, we have two vacancies, so Kate and Kyle, if you could serve for Charles Holden and Wendy. All right, so under old business, we have the application CC number 2229 for Vessel RE Holdings LLC, applicant PAY Properties LLC, owner for a wetland permit to allow grading and construction of site improvements, including parking lot, landscaping, retaining wall, guardrail, and the upland review area associated with the 64-unit multifamily development at 446 Hot Meadow Street, assessors map G13, block 142, lot 003C in Simsbury. So the public hearing is closed. So I missed the last meeting, but as a continuation of our discussion, and looking for motion. Do we have any further comments? I read through the minutes last time. It looked like there was considerable discussion. A lot of the points that the public brought up. Are there any further? And we do have before us two motions, and has everyone had a chance to do it?
I mean, I'll say I still have concerns with the runoff, both with the concentration of it and potential contaminants leaking away to the wetlands, which drains directly into Farmington River, which is designated wild and scenic, has many species of special concern. That's where my head's at.
Do you have anytime we have an application before us, we have to weigh what has been presented to us, the expert witness support, to deny those concerns.
I just think at the scale, we're talking about a significantly higher amount of potential contaminants making their way into the upland review area and eventually the wetlands.
There's been some, especially we don't. These are hard decisions when they're not the project you were hoping for. Anyone else have any comments?
I think I share that same sentiment as Mr. Levy. The runoff water coming in directly through one tube looking quite a bit of water that's going to be coming off the parking lot. You're going to have, especially in the winter time, a lot of extra stuff coming off and going right into the wetland.
Even calcium chloride.
Mm-hmm. Positive note, I think a lot of the other things that we were asked about have been.
Yeah, it was the volume and the velocity of the water.
I believe this one said it would be that thing.
Well, yes,
Volume, yes.
yes. Overall, it's going to be coming out
One spot rather than
in two spots. The main overflow is 1.7 something cubic feet per second. Doesn't sound like a lot. But when you do the conversion, math conversion, it's like 9 gallons a second. A lot. That's for a 25-year pump.
that's both the runoff, but that seemed to been from the site. It's not.
Yeah, it's used over the whole footprint of the whole property.
Using.
Right. The only thing I would be thinking,
The woman's coming out of the draft. Is, you know, on the whole weekend.
Although we did have testimony that, you know, it's the first day when we saw the last storm with this happening, that up to the first inch, that's when most of the food is carried. Then you get the solution of things after that.
yeah, it was the concentration and the flow, the velocity.
And then when you get but then when you do get the, higher flows for the pollution.
Well, of the pollutants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's just the velocity to begin with. It's a lot of water.
Yeah.
I know we don't have a crystal ball, but
Yeah, it's the matter that it's such a highly impervious surface.
correct.
Which was addressed and testimony supported the fact that most of it will be infiltrated. More so than it was in the previous conditions.
Correct.
My other big ask, the that Nelson directed that. What science we do know of shows very bad impacts on species of special concern that are present in the Farmington River and Second Brook.
Although it's not unique to this site.
No, but the volume that is going to be coming off of it is going to be far higher than what's there now. And I don't know of any projects of this scale with any similar condition that we've had before us with that proximity and the gradients. I mean, we just don't know if the system they're proposing will catch any of that at all. We don't know.
That's what's brought up at this time.
The science.
Madam Chair and members, if you could speak into the mics just a little bit, move them a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to lose the conversation.
Science that is existing shows that it has significant detrimental effects to specific species that are on the state list of special concern.
I agree with the concern. However, we didn't really have any expert testimony to that.
I respectfully disagree. Andrew is an expert in fisheries biology.
Okay.
And he put in the research and
He's been doing research on that?
yeah, and he did present it. And we don't know, there was nothing mentioned if the filtering they put in the catchment system will do anything for that.
It's an interesting thing because we haven't taken that into account for any other.
But have we had an application of this scale?
Not part of this is testing.
I mean, if this were, in my opinion, if this were a single family house or a two family house with 2 to 4 cars, I don't think it would be as big of an issue, but this is potentially over 100 cars. That could be a significant amount of contamination that we don't know if it's going to be going. What we do know is if it's not, it's going to cause significant issues for species of special concern.
From this side. But Hot Meadow Street is just a few feet away, and I don't think they have any storm management system for that, for the runoff from Hot Meadow Street.
create these things.
Correct.
I mean, we don't have to make problems worse.
I agree. I'm just saying, it's already there. And the waters are probably going right in the second floor.
Any comments?
Yeah, staff can't make any comments at this point. I can't testify.
No, but
I think,
process point of view.
so process-wise, I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm trying to move you along, it would be appropriate for a motion at this time. It would be appropriate for a motion. Motion in a second, then you can continue your discussion.
That would be good. All right, so I don't think there are any more comments. I read through the minutes of the last meeting. I know a lot of things were discussed. I would entertain them.
I'll make a motion that we deny the application based on the strong potential for erosion and siltation from these two health flow positions not being diffused enough, as well as the project being unsuitable for the area as it proposes 54% impervious coverage, including 102 parking spaces, where today sits a small single-family home. There is the potential to generate contaminants from parked cars, such as oil, gasoline, and other vehicular fluids. Project has not demonstrated that 100% of these contaminants will be contained on site and not make their way into the wetlands and watercourse, where they would have a negative impact on wetlands. The specific contamination 6 ppd heroin was not addressed by the applicant.
All right, do we have a second?
Madam Chair, again, if I could just hop in on this, I do think that the findings require you make a finding on feasible and the feasible alternative question.
Also, that the feasible and prudent alternative offered specifically reducing from 80 to 64 units does not reduce or remove the impacts to the wetlands or watercourse. Although the 16 units is marginally smaller, the grading and stormwater facilities remain unchanged. Site development plans and impacts are not modified to the extent they would provide significant reduction to the impact of stormwater runoff, concentration of flows, retard the release of contaminant off-site from the parking lot. Feasible and prudent alternative has not been offered, which would cause less or no environmental impact. Those reduction does not remove site grading, stormwater facilities, and parking spaces from the open review area.
And then, Madam Chair, the only thing I also would add with the motion maker, you do have a draft motion for denial. Would you just like to make that entire document
Yes.
a matter of the record? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just put that on the screen so everybody sees it, so it exists. The applicant does have a copy of it.
Do we have a second? Hearing none.
I'll second the motion.
You'll second motion. All right.
Keep it.
Any further discussion? All right, can I call for a vote? All in favor?
Point of clarification, in favor of denial.
Favor of the motion.
Ma'am, I would recommend you call the roll.
All right. Jason.
All
All right. Joe? I vote no. Huh?
Well, that's as well.
Oh, yes. Kyle?
I don't know if that's right now. I don't know if that's.
Well, they need to vote yay, nay, or abstain. Yeah, on the fence is not in the Robert's Rules of Order, as far as I know.
All right, so we'll go again. Abstain.
No.
No, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I'll abstain.
I count 3 in favor of the motion and 2 voting against the motion and 2 abstentions. Is that what you?
No.
Motion passed?
It fails.
3-2.
4 votes. There's 7 members. We're gonna have a majority of the members voting.
I'm not sure about that. Majority of the quorum.
The quorum is 7. Just because they abstained doesn't mean they're not here.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. What I would ask you to do is take a short recess, if I can't call the town attorney.
Short recess. I'll call a short recess. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Thank you.
Yeah, the town attorney advises that that motion fails. It's 4 votes for a motion to carry. So majority of the full membership is 4.
All right. Yes, all right.
So you have an alternative motion?
We have an alternative motion, so, I'd like to make another motion.
I move that the Simsbury Conservation Commission and Wetlands and Water Courses Agency approves application C2.9, Vessel RE Holdings LLC applicant, UAY Properties LLC owner, a wetland permit for the grading and construction of the improvements in the parking lot, landscaping, retaining wall, and guardrail in the open review area associated with a 64-unit multi-family development at 446 Hot Meadow Street. Based on the following findings, Simsbury Conservation Committee and Inland Wetlands Watercourse Agency has considered the criteria for decision found in section 10.2 of the town Inland Wetlands Watercourse regulations. Find the project meets all the standards for approval, will not adversely impact the wetlands and watercourse. The expert testimony provided during the public hearing process concludes the proposed construction activity will not adversely impact the wetlands and or watercourses. Commission concurs. The proposal is satisfactory as submitted, revised, and conditioned to be low. Proffered feasible improvement alternative, reducing the number of units from 80 to 64, further reduces the scope of the project and therefore further reduces any impact on the wetlands. Just Mike, but you want to read this whole thing into the?
I think you can reference it for the record as it's shown on screen with the date.
I would reference for the record as it's shown on the screen all of the conditions and considerations.
I did have one consideration in item 9 of following conditions.
So what I would get a second first.
Oh, okay, all right. We have a second. I can't second.
Chairman can second. Remember the commission.
All right, second. All in favor. All right, we'll do this again. Jason.
but I would ask, you can have discussion.
Discussion.
So if there's, yeah,
All right.
discussion.
Discussion, thank you. I did want to amend, item 9. Here it says for a period of 3 years from the approval date, the applicant shall complete and submit 2 inspection and maintenance reports a year, one no later than June 30th and one no later than December 31st. I'd like to add, and annually thereafter. Because the success of this project of the sediment, of the stormwater system is on, the annual cleaning of that system. And it needs to be going forward in the future.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Any other further discussion? Those in favor?
I'd call the roll again.
I'll vote again. All right, thank you.
Abstain.
Joe?
Yes.
Yes, I will be yes.
No, Meg,
Don?
Nay.
Nay.
Abstain.
Well, I think you have to have a frank conversation with yourselves about an affirmative. Are there anything on the affirmative motion that could sway you as a group, or is there anything on the negative motion that can sway you as a group? On the affirmative, are there any conditions you could add?
Are there any conditions that you could add? For those who want to vote against this motion? That will change it.
I think we talked about last week, implementing maybe like more quality. We talked about like post. I don't know if that's something that's feasible, especially when there is a concern. I mean, it's hard to think that with 60 to 80 new waters right above the wetland, that there's not going to be any contaminants, including PPD, getting into the wetlands.
even if we identified it, what can we do about it? Ex post facto. That's where I'm at.
As far as the flow, maybe to have the outlets, have more of them or expand them, get the flow instead of being concentrated in just a few feet. Especially the FES one, the one that's all by itself on the northeast corner. I know that they're, you know, there's a lot to go through, and it's fairly drawing all the facts and figures, but the way I read it, it's saying that, you know, all the runoff from the other properties is as it exists now. And I know we don't have a crystal ball, but in the winter it will freeze and there will not be any infiltration. All that water is going to go pounding on the edge of this one of the other, just a few inches of rain. And it's a pretty small outlet the way it is designed now. I think it can be expanded, maybe instead of one, maybe three, just to diffuse the water, to, you know, mitigate it somehow.
We need to see a change of plans to make sure that's something that's even.
No, I think it's got to be accomplished by a condition at this point. Or a recommendation to the zoning commission to implement. I don't think we can revise the plans at this point.
It would have been something during the hearing. When we have the applicants.
Even so, that doesn't address the contaminants,
Right.
in particular the PPD. So that's where I'm at.
I think one reason I'm struggling on the fence is that
approval is weighs a lot of trust in the applicant to follow through. And it feels like with the way our wetland regulations are, instead of denying out of an abundance of caution, we're compelled to approve things because of kind of the process that exists. And we're compelled to trust an applicant to uphold their end of the deal with some enforcement and framework in place. But what does that really do to deter an applicant that doesn't want to spend the extra money if their big picture, their grand scheme doesn't play out the way they want to? The plans that they have don't work as well. And so that's why I'm on the fence about it. I feel like they've done a lot to comply with our recommendations, the things that we would like to see them do if the plan goes through. And so that is why I've been on the fence, because I think they've done a good job of working through all of our concerns that we can get on the record. And we're left with our concerns that aren't, well, speaking for myself, aren't easy to get on the record, and kind of just I'm sort of basing it off this. So it doesn't feel right, but it seems like they are covering their bases and everything that we have presented. So I know I've seen both times, but I have sort of a way that I'm leaning, because I feel like I'm compelled through the way I am reading the regulations that I might have to be voting the next motion. So I don't know if other commissioners feel a similar way with.
No, it's a very intense site, and it's heavily reliant on the stormwater management systems. If the stormwater management systems are not maintained, they actually become sources of pollutant other than mitigation. And that's why I included in section 9 that they have to be annually reported thereafter to the town to address that concern.
I think if it went a step further beyond just checking the tanks and things like that, and went to checking what's coming out pollution wise, if it was held under a certain threshold,
So here's the challenge. When do you measure? You measure after who's going to go out there, who's going to do that? Are there automated measurements? What are you exactly measuring? I've done in the past stormwater measurement, and it depends when you sample to what you're going to get. So, and what would we do with that information if we have it? Yeah.
And the question remains, if we find something, at that point, it's probably too late to.
Well, it would also, and it's also a matter of concentration. Generally, during a stormwater event, you get the first inch of rainfall is going to get most of the fruits. After that, it's diluted. So when would you sample? What would you sample for? And who's going to do this? I'm more concerned with the rain garden, who's going to maintain it. So but plants are plants, and they're fine, but
I just
maybe add something that it should not be a source of invasive plants. Point for it. That would be something to, because you want a functioning rain garden, because the rain gardens will pull out some of those fruits. Plants are really good phytonative.
just think with the scale and the sensitivity of the weapons. It's too big for me to roll the dice on that it's going to be okay.
So what could we add to make it either one way or the other? Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, I expressed various thoughts as we've gone on. My thoughts are we can only in my opinion, vote on what's been presented to us. We got a lot of expert testimony. I don't particularly like this project. I don't particularly like it. I think it is a very intense project. I could share some of the same concerns, but unfortunately, the testimony that's been presented from the expert testimony and any questions that we've had has been answered. I know there's this 6 PPD issue that Commissioner Bade brought up. I know that that's sort of a new and emerging science. So I'm not really sure what kind of testimony we could have gotten on that anyway. But I know that I'm as a commissioner required to vote on what's presented to me. In expert testimony, there's been a wetlands person who's talked about it. There was the site engineer, I believe he was, who spoke at length about the storm management system. They're concerned about the dumpsters. The dumpsters were moved. They're concerned about the bears. They're now bear proof. And questions about snow removal. A lot of questions about snow removal. We were presented with information from the company that would be contracted to do it about how they do snow removal. And I believe there was a study by UNH, I think, that talked about that. That is, as of now, the gold standard of what to do with snow removal. The other issue is I am unable to predict the future. I wish I could. I'd be able to really make a solid vote either way, but based on the information that's presented to me, I feel as though I have to vote in the affirmative for it. So I'm not really sure what could be added to the negative motion that would make me change my vote.
Jason.
Expressed why I'm on the fence is based on the conclusion when we bring on the second vote.
I mean, I know that we can't predict the future. That's why I feel that we should err on the side of caution and not approve the application. I think the scale is too big of a risk, too close for that sensitive level.
I'm here concerned about if the outfalls would change.
It would alleviate a lot of my concerns.
And you're concerned about erosion
Erosion
from the discharge.
from the discharge or out the outflow.
You know, you could,
Can we make that a
I
specification?
mean, I think it's probably appropriate to condition it. I mean, you can't require an engineered solution that a project hasn't considered, I don't think.
No.
But I do think that you can add a condition that says the applicant shall review and consider diffusion alternatives as part of their stormwater management system. That's off the top of my head.
But we wouldn't get to see what that looks like.
You would not.
The town engineer, but the town engineer was happy with the outfalls as they were.
Town engineer's testimony in the record said there are no outstanding issues and that stormwater met stormwater requirements of the Connecticut State Code and best practices. Yes.
So that is the testimony. Also, during the times of high flow, the stream is also higher, so the flow into it is commensurate with the flow in the river.
Still have to get the stream down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, like I said, I was worried about the contaminants, but I know he was saying you know, still not a lot of great data. I mean, maybe 5 years from now, we'll realize that there is a lot of PPD as a huge issue. It's hard without, like you said, expert testimony to rely on, besides Dr. Gray, of course.
I would just encourage you to rely on the record and the expert testimony and testimony that's on the record.
That's really all we can do. Even if we have concerns.
Yeah.
You know. Kyle?
I think my statements earlier, some of my feelings.
All right, so you go through the motions again?
Well, their motions have already been,
How do you see it?
so I would, I would recommend, if that's what you wanted to do, it, I would amend, or add your invasive species condition. And then I think it would be appropriate to restate the motion.
So I recommend invasive species removal from the green garden.
Or any on the site itself,
Yeah, the green garden, and yeah, thank you.
not means.
So this is an additive condition number.
Well, 15 should be, the applicant to consider diffusion. Additional diffusion of the lows in the outflow. Okay, 15, and then 16 would be, require invasive removal, species removal from the rain garden and the site. For the duration of the,
So say that again in terms of the timing.
it should be the duration of the stormwater management system.
I mean, the duration of ongoing, continually and ongoing.
For ongoing, let's just do that. For ongoing
Require ongoing monitoring of,
monitoring and removal.
and removal of any invasive
Species.
should.
Yes. And the offense.
And so,
So I think if you're headed towards the affirmative motion, then I think you can restate the approval motion with the additional condition.
Could we add the overflow modifications?
That's what, should consider additional diffusion of the, flow from the earth. Is that how you want to read that? Applicant,
He said he's an engineer, he got a removal on concrete. Yeah.
Right, so the way the way it was stated by the chairwoman, the applicant shall consider diffusion options associated with the stormwater management facility. Something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Outflow diffusion options, excuse me.
Exactly, outflow diffusion.
That would result in better, something you can add on to that to make sure that it's not a way that it can be changed.
But that's what I'm just trying to think, I mean.
Dude,
Like right now, FDS one has 0.47 cubic feet per second outflow at the 25-year storm cycle. It's only 5 feet wide, it's pretty narrow, but the riprap is only 2 feet, so it's
But that's, that's because of the site.
It will be more.
And we, well, I guess we could do anything, right? We could word it to, for EW1 and FES1 to consider alternatives to have each outflow, instead of having one at 0.47, have two combined at 0.47. You know what I mean? Just sort of spread it out. And the same EW1, instead of one at 1.78, have two at 0.8, whatever it is.
Consider additional outfalls to diffuse. Diffuse the flow, the velocity of the flow.
Yeah, or the
For the velocity and the volume
reduce the volume
Reduce the.
per
each outlet,
per each outlet by half. So
something like that. So that it's, instead of 0.47 out of one, it becomes. It's 3.
0.23 or whatever, 0.22. Per to just to diffuse it, that way you don't have this.
You got it? I don't have it. Yeah.
So for EW1 and SW1, consider additional outflows to reduce the volume by each outlet by half, is that?
By,
Well, if you're asking them, let me, if I could help.
Yeah.
If you're asking them to consider, I don't think it's necessarily helpful to then require. Right. So, I mean, I think the original condition of the applicant shall consider, the applicant shall examine and consider engineering solutions to improve outflow and diffusion options. Outflow diffusion options.
I like that because maybe it also isn't going to be any better, or we don't. I don't think we know. I mean, it's an idea. Yeah, I'm just trying to mitigate the right. And maybe they'll find when they consider that, maybe it won't come out to being any better or worse. But I think the way it was worded seemed to affect it. The way.
Yes.
Because it's specifically asking for improvement if there are some. Yeah, I mean, well, there's the lane. So it's a pipe going in the riprap. It's like sending rock the moon, but it's just a matter of complexity and cost. And maybe there's something out there that's even better.
Would that be working with the town engineer or would that be?
I think consider covers it.
All right, so we got two additional conditions. Are there any other conditions?
So what would the last condition be? Just to straighten it all out.
Okay.
I'm getting confused.
Okay.
Or what have we added, I should say?
The applicant shall examine and consider engineering solutions to improve outflow diffusion for the stormwater management facilities.
Yes, that's. And the other one's the invasive stuff, right?
Yeah.
Invasive species shall be removed from the rain garden and the site on a continuing and ongoing basis.
Anything that's monitored and monitored.
Shall we do the motion again?
So I think you can move a new motion that moves the approval motion with the addition, with the findings and the addition of the 2 additional conditions related to invasive species and stormwater management. So
So I'll move the, original affirmative motion, with the 2 additional conditions, one of which would include fusion of the stormwater management system, and these other added condition would be the requirement of the moderation of removal of basis, rain dirt in the site.
I have a second. So we'll call for a vote again, Jason?
I will continue to abstain on this round.
Joe?
Yes.
Irene, yes.
Nay.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Oh, that was hard. As we said, it's not our favorite project. We think there's far too much on this site, where we wish that it's been on almost any site other than this. But the way the law works, we've had expert testimony, the applicant has worked with us to improve as much as we can within the parameters that we have to follow by the state. So I want to thank the commissioners for not unusual work. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
For amendments to the project, and thank you to the public. There have many nights for us, open your concerns, we urge you. These applications are not easy. They're not. Very much.
there's nothing else on your agenda.
Thank you. So, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.